Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that Handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
Alrighty, folks, it is time to get the good times rolling here, because today we are talking about SD-WAN versus SASE versus SSE, understanding your options. I'm so happy to get into this conversation with you all because there's so much to dig into when it comes to this topic, and enterprises are rapidly evolving in terms of how data is hosted, stored, and most importantly, secured. Good news, we are not alone in this journey. We have top experts here with us from HPE, Aruba Networking, Zscaler, and from Palo Alto Networks, who are going to guide us through this timely topic. I know you are all ready and pumped up to get started, so we'll go through just a few last little bits of info, then get our speakers on out here with us. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy, and I am a moderator here at Actual Tech Media. My friends and fellow moderators Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward are here with us on live chat today. And just to make sure, I don't completely derail this thing, nice to meet you all, and thank you for being here today. In more exciting news, we've got some exceptional prizes. Today you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards that will be given out to 3 lucky winners who are here, present, and live with us at the EcoCast. And as mentioned in the housekeeping chat this morning, you can find the full T's and C's linked in the Handouts tab if you have any questions about that. And with that, I believe we are ready to get this party started. You are in for a treat today because we have Evgeny Karam, co-founder of Security Architecture Podcast. He's an absolute veteran and expert in this field, which is why I'm thrilled to have him here to share with us. Since I'm not so patient, I'm going to hand things over now. Thanks so much for being here, Evgeny. Why don't you take it away?
Hello, everyone. I'm so eager to present today about this topic. I've been in SASE, SSE, cloud web gateways for probably a number of years. I'm talking about way before the industry started talking about this. I've been working in network security for more than 20 years, so I'm very passionate about this topic. And after me, you're going to have amazing people going very deep to all these topics. Let me present my screen and we will start talking about some interesting things. So we'll talk today about SD-WAN, SASE, and SSE, why it's important, where we are, and where are we going with all this. As you may probably notice right now, I don't work from anywhere. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we spent the majority of our time working in the office. And we left at 5 and kind of didn't check our email until the next day. Right now, everything is different. We're working from anywhere. We want to be connected all the time. We basically need to understand and protect the people in the companies all the time as well. And the companies want result right away. We need this now. We need this ASAP. We cannot wait till next week. It's very interesting to understand where we're going with this, because what do we see is the vendors understand this part as well, and they start to aggregate a lot of the information inside the vendor, threat intelligence, analytics, reporting. You don't need so many tools right now. You can get all this in one vendor. And again, we're talking right now about the protection of your corporate environment. Some people sometimes misunderstand SASE and SSE and thinking it's a tools to protect their data center as WAF, DDoS, or protect their application. I kind of disagree, and these are tools to protect your corporate environment and your users and how they connect to applications that your company uses. We also see a very strong demand for automation. Again, faster, stronger, better. We want everything to be faster and get the results right now. So what happened? In August 2019, Gartner came up with a framework. Stuff already exists by this time, but Gartner decided to, as is usual, change some stuff and Here with the name, Secure Access Service Edge. It has 4 different pillars: network, security web gateway, firewall as a service, the way I like to call it as well here, CASB, and ZTNA. Interesting to say that during this time, there was no magic quadrant for ZTNA for remote access. There was already magic quadrant for secure web gateway, CASB, cloud access security broker, and of course the firewalls. And I'll explain why it's important. Because later on, in February 2022, they realized they want to kind of aggregate everything under one umbrella, and it makes sense. So they release a magic quadrant for the security components of the framework and aggregating all the 3 pillars under one umbrella: secure web gateway, firewall, CASB, and ZTNA. And I think it makes sense because you don't want too many agents. You don't want different routing paths. Some of the capabilities and the controls are very similar between CASB and security web gateway in some cases. So it totally makes sense. You do see I removed the network part here, and I think it's important to explain that during the pandemic, we saw a big dip on SD-WAN and networks because we work from home. And when you ask how would you work with SASE and SSE, I'll probably tell you use an agent because you're home. But what's happening if you're in the office? And we see many people going back to offices right now. I need a device to able to steer the traffic. I'm not always capable to use the agent. IoT devices, network devices, servers, not always capable to install the device there. And it's important now to understand how this SD-WAN devices will connect back to SASE and SSE vendors to route the traffic correctly. Before we're going to go there, let's dive in and explain what's even the difference. So in this framework of SASE, we have network and we have the security controls. And you can see one and another, what do we have under there? I'm not going to read this, probably familiar with this, but you get the idea. With the SASE, we're basically removing the network component and only focusing on the security aspect of this part. So far, so good. But you may say, oh my God, there's so many things happening. Like, look on this. I need to do so many different controls. I have secure web gateway, IPS, IDS, firewall, CASB, ZTNA, all under one vendor. And there's basically so many things I need to take care about them, and it makes sense. So in a way, it could be a bit confusing and it could be a bit hard. And it's also the reason why we're slowly aggregating them under one umbrella. So it is complex. Yeah, I'll say it's very complex. And there's many things you need to understand about architecture. There's the reason why we now have a bit of a new term. In August 2023, Gartner came up with the idea that Secure Access Service Edge is no longer a framework, it also could be a one vendor. And we do see many mature vendors, and some of them I'm going to present after me today as well. We'll explain how they take everything and put it under one umbrella of the vendor. Think about that. If I have a DLP policy, do I want 4 places to have the DLP policy? For my remote access, for my OneDrive, and for my browsing? Probably not. What if I need to connect my SD-WAN to my security web gateway in the cloud? Do I need to have 2 interfaces? Or maybe I'm going to have one way to go and create all the tunnels problematically. And don't forget, SD-WAN is software defined. So we want to define it and automate it and not just run several scripts and across 50 different offices. This is the main reason why we now have single secure access service edge. And many of the leading vendors are there right now, as I mentioned before. I'm going to stop right now here. They're going to be amazing vendors and people I personally know present you about their solution and how they solve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Evgeny. That was wonderful as always. Incredible info about trends and honestly so engaging. You are correct. Our presenters today will be providing some cutting edge solutions to this problem. Now you'll see that I've put up a poll. Take a second to answer this about the timelines in which you're thinking to implement some of the strategies and softwares we're discussing today. Maybe you don't know. That's okay too. We're just getting a lay of the land here, opening up your minds. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to do that. We'll have a few polls today. And always, please answer the polls, send in questions for our presenters. That way we have a lively chat around the Q&A. And the more input comes from you, the more you'll get out of today's event. Okie dokie. I'm closing the poll. So last moment here. Since we have a lot to cover today, let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our first presenters of today's EcoCast. These two have decades of joint experience in secure data storage and access, and will share the most current information and strategies about SD-WAN, SASE, and SSE. Please welcome from the HPE Aruba networking team, John Spiegel, Director of Strategy and Field CTO, and Jay Tilson, Director of Strategy. John and Jay, thank you for being here to kick things off. I'm going to join you for the Q&A, but until then, John, Jay, the stage is all yours.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today. In this session, we're going to talk about unifying SSE and SD-WAN for a synergized SASE strategy. Before we get started, let me just introduce you to your host for today. My name is Jay Tilson, and I am joined by my colleague and friend, John Spiegel. Together, John and I have spent over 50 years in the enterprise, running large infrastructure and security teams. We spent the bulk of our careers sitting in your chairs, and therefore we've experienced the same daily challenges as you have. And not just those technical challenges, but the cultural, the budget, and the resource challenges also. Recently, we left our roles in the enterprise space and moved to a small company called Access, which is now part of HPE Aruba Networking. We made this move because we both believe that networking and security are marred in complexity, and stitching together a bunch of solutions that worked in the early 2000s no longer works in this new hybrid world that we live in. Over the years, we have found that the old approach really just created more challenges than solutions, and when deployed really looked like a game of mousetrap. We both believe there is a better way of doing things, and this is really all about consolidation. So let's get started. The enterprise is undergoing the most significant transformation in history. Companies are adopting cloud services like never before, with many companies having a cloud-first approach. This means the legacy systems that always used to be on-prem are now being moved to things like software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. Additionally to this, there is a huge rise in the number of IoT devices in use, with statistics showing that there will be more than 15 billion IoT devices connected to the enterprise infrastructure by 2029. The pandemic also created a massive shift in our workforce, with hybrid work now being the norm. More than 50% of workers are expected to be remote part or all of the time. And this means that our users, their devices, our data, and our applications are now everywhere. These huge changes require a new approach when it comes to network security to keep access fast and safe, as our legacy solutions are no longer sufficient, with more and more companies being compromised. Statistics show that the average cost of a data breach now stands at more than $4.8 million, up 25% since 2022. Before we move on, I just want to make one more scary statistic very clear. 80% of IT organizations found IoT devices on their network that they did not know about and did not install. Let that sink in for just a minute. So let's be clear. Our world is moving very quickly towards a dissolving perimeter, with users, data, and applications everywhere and anywhere. And IT and security teams are really struggling in this race to keep up. So with that in mind, let's just remind ourselves about the three approaches in which we can secure our workforce today. Firstly, we have the hub and spoke design. This is a progression from the old castle and moat design where everyone was inside of our perimeters. But this design still focuses on having on-prem security, even though, like I said, our users and data are starting to move to the cloud. With this design, there is still a heavy reliance on those legacy MPLS networks and internal data centers. And in my experience, this model is complex to configure and to administrate. You have to feed and water applications and hardware, you have to go through hardware renewal cycles, and you have to continually patch all of your systems to protect them against attack. The next option is virtual cloud firewalls. This is moving your files from on your premise into the cloud. And this is really an evolution of that hub and spoke design. And it really was there to deal with our users moving out of our networks and things moving to the cloud. The aim here really is to remove some of the burdens of keeping systems secure. However, in my experience and in a lot of cases, this still meant backhauling traffic into your corporate networking data centers. So although this design is supposed to make things simpler to manage, in my experience it often led to more complexity and more cost. And then we have SASE. So what is SASE, you might ask, and why do we need it? Introduced by Gartner in 2019, SASE addresses the issues I have just highlighted. It focuses on bringing together networking security and is delivered in two technology stacks. The left-hand side of this graphic is all about the connectivity elements with a focus on WAN edge services like SD-WAN and WAN optimization. On the right-hand side, you have the security elements under the SSE banner, which is really about bringing together core security tools like ZTNA, CASB, SWG, and DEM. And as I have highlighted, our world has changed and the tools of the past no longer work in this new world. This means that every network and security engineer faces a challenge when deploying new applications. Do I favor speed or do I favor security? SASE overcomes this dilemma by moving services to POP so that connectivity and security are close as possible to not only the user but resources. Statistics show that not only are IT teams turning to SASE to resolve these issues, but they are also seeking vendor consolidation. In fact, in a recent report from Ponemon Institute and from Gartner, 46% of organizations say they will adopt SASE in the next 12 months, and 65% will have adopted individual SASE components into one or two explicit partner vendors. I'd like to note at this point that SASE really is a journey. You are not expected to implement SASE overnight, but take steps to get there. And we'll cover a little bit about more of this later.
Thank you, Jay. Now that you understand the framework of SASE, what it is and what it is not, let's dive into some of the challenges that you're facing on the enterprise front. Jay and I, we have many discussions with your peers. Here's what we've heard as top needs for 2024. First, we need a simplified SaaS monitoring and visibility tool. Also, how can we support real-time applications with redundancy? We also hear this often. We must do more with less. How can we automate or simplify our network and security solutions? Also, our applications are moving from the data center to the cloud. Is there a way to provide a solution which can connect both and ease this transformation? And then finally, how can we account for and improve the user experience? Said another way, how can we reduce the IT friction for our fellow employees while also securing the business? HPE Aruba Networking SASE was designed with two philosophies. First, provide the best connectivity for the most difficult networks. Whether this is a lossy satellite connection or a low bandwidth DSL line, our Edge Connect SD-WAN has you covered. Two unique capabilities to mention here. First, path conditioning. Combine adaptive for error correction, you can overcome the most difficult, challenging line. No more midnight calls about that slow line in Brazil. The second capability is boost. Need some extra bandwidth, but the line is a low megabits per second in a rural location? Add boost. Overcome the limitations of that dastardly last mile telco. All right, so let's talk about simplicity. Security, it is tough sledding, folks. Multiple point products, no integration, complex UIs, and no APIs to make them all come together. Worse, policy sprawl. How about bring simplicity to security? HPE SSE. The foundation, it's based on zero trust principles, least privilege. Only allow what the employee needs, nothing more, nothing less. But do it in a simple way with an easy to configure read policy engine. shift your security to the left. Then go further with features like CASB, DLP, SWIG. Get 360-degree coverage for your key applications and data. What makes the HPE SSE solution different? A single code base for the entire SSE solution. No mixing and matching you will see with the other SSE providers out there. It's not the portfolio you will find elsewhere. The result? Lower cost to manage, lower cost to operate, and higher security outcomes, as you don't need to manage policy in several places or go through 20 clicks to get to your final configuration. HPE SSE can provide ZTNA, CASB, and DLP services with posture checks in a single policy statement. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. All right, as Jay mentioned, SASE, it's a journey, but every journey has a starting point. Where to start? Based on feedback from your peers, it's SSE. 67% of the respondents in the 2023 Security Edge report said that they're starting their SASE journey with SSE. Why? Urgent concerns around hybrid workforce, protecting the business from the threats of the internet, and securing SaaS applications with a single tool to lower operational costs, while also increasing visibility. As Jay will explain here soon, the HPE SSE solution is a modern approach to securing connectivity and applications. As for the journey, we'll come back to that in a bit with a roadmap to guide you to that successful destination. Over to you, Jay, in the UK. Let's dive into several of the key aspects of the HPE SSE solution.
So let's talk a little bit about our platform. It was built from the ground up with simplicity in mind. Complexity really does not make for good security design. So we have a single solution with a single UI, a single data lake, and a single reporting engine for all elements of SSE, built on a single code base from the ground up with zero trust at its core. We are not a bunch of separately acquired or developed products bolted together into a portfolio. That's far too complex. This means that we can secure access from any type of user, a third party, a contractor, or an enterprise employee, to all of your resources, including those private applications, SaaS applications, or the internet. And like I said, all from a single place. Our architecture is also very different. We do not own our own data centers or need our own hardware. We are built on top of the cloud giants with all of the features of SSE being available in all of our POPs. You don't need to go to one POP for ZTNA and another POP for SWIG. This really isn't simple. This is complex. This architectural difference also ensures we can eliminate any bandwidth problems. We have smart routing technology using the power of the hyperscaler networks, with over 1,000 edge locations across more than 5 continents. This superpower means that users always get the fastest possible access to resources from wherever they are, without the need to backhaul any traffic, and this offers always the best user experience. So let's dive a little bit deeper. When you look at the SSE market, you'll find that each solution emphasizes one of these core technology areas. It could be Secure Web Gateway or SWIG, as the company started there. Or maybe Cloud Access Security Broker, CASB, as that was the target market that the company was looking to be competitive in. As I've just highlighted, our approach is very different. We believe the future is about transition to a new security strategy based on zero trust. The platform is designed to provide the resource required to perform a specific function. Nothing more and nothing less. And then we vigilantly watch for any indicators of change and adapt access accordingly. We built our platform to deliver agentless zero trust network access for the hard to solve use cases of third party and contractors, where an agent cannot be installed. And then we added an agent to ensure full VPN replacement, and then on top of the same code base, built out the rest of the SSE features. We believe the future is about delivering secure access for applications, whether they are in the cloud or in your private data center. Services must be delivered the same no matter of the location of the user, the application, or the data, with security checks such as MFA and device posture. We believe we have elegantly solved this problem for you, for both the employee and for those difficult use cases such as third parties. But let's just be clear. Our platform was built on top of this concept of zero trust, and that's really at its core. And then we added the other SSE features to the platform. Secure Web Gateway is there for securing your employees from the internet-based threats. CASB for leveraging SaaS assets like Salesforce or Office 365. And for me, the critical element that people often forget, DEM, or Digital Experience Monitoring. Giving back visibility to your IT and security teams that we lost when our users left our networks. So now let's look a little bit on how all of this works. As previously stated, our platform includes all of the core functions of SSE. This means that access is granted to the internet, SaaS applications, the public cloud, or applications hosted in your data centers, all from a single UI. So first, the user requests access. Note that this can be with or without an agent, as I've mentioned. So we can cover those difficult third-party and contractor use cases where an agent cannot be installed. Next, the platform auto-mediates the request to access, and at scale. Unlike with legacy VPNs, there are no pass-through connections. Users do not get an IP address, they do not get put on your network, and they cannot go wherever they want, whenever they want. The system then prompts for MFA, and will automatically verify against your defined access policy. This is based on user, device, and application contexts to prevent any unauthorized access. Once everything balances, it then brokers smart and surgical connections that help minimize the attack surface and prevent lateral movement. As previously mentioned, we have a single data lake for all of these services, which allows full visibility to our platform. Please note that the platform also continuously inspects the posture of the device and the user, and if anything changes, access can be adapted or severed within 60 seconds. For me, this all adds up to increased protection against the bad guys, and it also significantly reduces cost and complexity. And most importantly, it really does empower your remote workforce.
At the end of the day, customers are the key. Examples could be like Delta Dental, where they got the jump start on their Zero Trust program by replacing 4 VPN solutions with one SSE platform. Or it could be like UKG, where they went all in on unified SASE with HPE. Fast connectivity with a full security platform. Then there's VisionWorks, a national optical retailer. Their journey was about network transformation. How do we move applications from on-prem to the cloud with little to no impact on their employees? How do these companies find success? Here's the roadmap that they are on. The journey to SASE, it cannot be accomplished in a day, a week, a month, or even a year. It is a long walk. If anyone tells you otherwise, make sure to question it. Why is this so? You're taking what were in the past multiple point products and replacing them with a single integrated solution, built to solve the challenges of today. Distributed applications, data in every corner of the internet, and now the hybrid workforce. To do this, you need to consider your IT budgets, your resource budgets, your network, as well as your peers in either networking or security. You must seek alignment. To do so, it will take time to plan your journey. And if you do so, you will see success and realize a better time to value. Now, where you start, that's up to you. It really comes down to securing and solving the most difficult business challenges and creating outcomes for your company. Use this slide as a guide. From my perspective, I've seen a lot of success starting with agentless for third-party access, moving off VPN, which is very risky, According to a report by Dark Reading, 60% of breaches involve third parties. Gain a quick win by moving to ZTNA access. Secure your network and protect against lateral movement. Agentless access, it's a great place to start and makes a quick win for you and your business. So what is next? Reach out to us. We'd love to work with you on either a value assessment, a demo of our solution, or help you on the journey to SASE. It's really up for you to pick the path. Thank you for taking the time to spend with Jay and myself. If you have questions on SASE, ZTNA, or SSE, feel free to reach out to us through email or through LinkedIn. Enjoy the rest of your day.
John and Jay, fantastic. I'm sure you will have some messages coming your way to email or LinkedIn. I want to point out to everyone out there, I've put up another poll for you. We'd love to get your feedback on any additional resources that you'd like to explore from HPE Aruba Networking. Your feedback is always super valuable, so please take a moment to fill out that poll. I've got some questions to fire at you too, John, Jay, here from the audience. Are you guys ready for it?
Oh yeah,
Always
we were
ready,
born
thank
ready.
Good. I like that. He was born for this. Okay, so let's hit it off. So first one, and you guys can decide if you want to answer both of you or just pick one. I'll let you kind of decide amongst yourselves. But first question is, how does your solution handle integrations with third-party tools such as, and if I butcher any of these acronyms, CM, SOAR, and EDR? Question mark.
Jay, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, we have a built-in dashboard already, but we also have the ability to export to a SIEM of your choice. We quite often work with Splunk or Curate or any of the leading vendors. We also have integrations with the likes of CrowdStrike. We're completely API driven, so we're quite happy to work. We see it as part of the cybersecurity mesh. So working with anybody else is something that we're happy to do. We have no problem doing that. John, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah, I would say, and you hit on it there, APIs. Our product is built much like a software-defined networking framework. So if we can build those northbound APIs, it's relatively easy for us because we are a cloud-native platform. So if there is a product that we don't support right now, the integration for us is really straightforward.
Nice. Super adaptable. Love that. I've got a couple more questions here coming in. So next one is from a gentleman named John. Based on the Gartner SSE framework, there are quite a few products that are consolidated into one. Does this impact speed in which you ramp up a platform like this?
Great question. There's a large debate going on right now between defense in depth portfolios and platforms. And if you look at a lot of the other products out on the marketplace, many of them are in that portfolio place, which means the company has started in one space. Maybe it was Swig, maybe it was CASB, maybe it was something else, and then began to acquire other products to make out their SASE framework. We started in a different approach. We started in 2018, 2019, had the ability to look at the marketplace, see what worked, see what didn't. We also had the ability to take advantage of zero trust out of the gate after it was announced or brought forth by John Kindervag. As well, cloud native. We built our product on top of the clouds using cloud native frameworks, Kubernetes, those types of things. So we are a true platform, and for us to add new features, it's basically building on top of that platform with the same code base. So the amount of technical debt that we have is rather limited, and we can expand and add other capabilities relatively easy.
Nice. Lane popped a question in asking about providing any case studies. I don't know if we have time for that now, but do you have anything you can cite, or if there's something people could take a look at somewhere?
Absolutely. I mean, on the HPE website, go look for our SSE product. There are several case studies there. I think there's a few videos as well. The city of San Jose was one of our early adopters of the product. Their challenge was hybrid workforce, and they wanted to also maintain their culture, as well as some of their legacy applications, which reside in the data center, and then newer applications, which were SaaS based. So there is certainly that one. There are several other customer stories. If you want to reach out to us, we're more than happy to have a conversation on that.
Amazing. More questions popping in, so I'm giving you guys some rapid fire. Rick is asking, can SSE functions be subscribed to without the SD-WAN appliance?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that one. So absolutely, not only can the SSE functions be taken without SD-WAN appliances, but you can also buy the SSE functions themselves granularly. So if you are looking at VPN replacement, legacy VPN replacement, then you can go in the direction of ZTNA license. If you're looking at replacing your legacy secure web gateway, you can do that as well. As John said, we are a single UI and everything is seen as features within the platform on the top of a single code base. But we also understand that this is a journey and people will start that journey in different places. So it's as much as we are seeing most people starting with kind of risky VPN replacement, if secure web gateway is something you want to start with, we allow for that as well. So we're open to people and starting the journey wherever they like. And we're obviously happy to help them in that direction.
Okay, excellent. I think we have time for just one more question. So this last one says, I see that this integrates with the larger cybersecurity ecosystem with SIEM, but does it provide insights within the platform itself?
Absolutely. Again, one of the ways we built this product was to have a single data lake. So that allows us to not only provide insights through the UI, which we have for digital experience monitoring, there's security insights, but long-term also be able to add capabilities around AI, ML to start to really gain that operational side of the optimizations that are available too. So yeah, single data lake, and you can definitely do your threat hunting there as well.
Beautiful.
I'd like to add a little bit to that as well. I think it's pretty critical that we, I mean, that's a very large focus of our platform is the visibility, because when our users moved outside of our environments, moved out of those castles and moats and became more remote, more hybrid, we lost a lot of the visibility into what they were doing. So that's an area of the platform that we've been heavily focused on, is giving that visibility back. So you can not only be able to understand what your users are doing, but also protect them against threats and obviously control access to applications. So that's a critical part, and I'm glad that somebody asked that question.
Yeah, and just to add to that quickly, the visibility is a critical piece. If you can't see a threat, you can't take action on it. So Jay's point there is very valid, and it's very critical for us to be successful in this decade of all these cybersecurity threats.
Excellent. Thank you both. Last question, where should they reach out if they want to take next steps? LinkedIn and email, or what's the best way to go?
Yeah, reach out to the HPE Aruba Networking website. There's plenty of information there. Personally, you can reach out to myself and Jay. We talk a lot about this topic, both from a vendor standpoint and also from a vendor neutral standpoint. Great resources there. Yeah, there's a whole community associated with it. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, John, Jay. It's been great. I'm going to let you go. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot. All right. If you want to learn more about the HPE Aruba networking solution, go to the handouts tab and click into the link where you'll find the summary of the solution called At a Glance HPE Aruba Networking SSE. It'll outline how to enable seamless and secure access for every user, device, and application from anywhere with HPE Aruba Networking SSE. And with that, I have a prize to give away. So let's do that. First $300 Amazon gift card is going to Brian Sutz from California. Congratulations. As always, we'll be in touch about claiming your prize after the webinar. And don't forget that there are still 2 more chances to win an Amazon gift card today, plus a best question gift card from each session. So keep sending in your questions as presenters go up. But for now, let's keep zipping right along and jump into our next presentation on the EcoCast. Next up in today's run of experts is Zscaler, and I think some of you may recognize this popular presenter. Please welcome Sanjit Ganguly, CTO in residence. Don't forget to put your questions for Sanjay in for the Q&A, where I'll be posing him the best queries of the day. All right, Sanjit, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much, and a pleasure to be here today and presenting on this topic, SD-WAN versus SASE versus SSE. Certainly a mouthful of acronyms there, understanding your options. So yeah, let's go through the problem statement, what these technologies are trying to solve, and discuss the technological ways to actually go about solving them. So a brief introduction of what these definitions actually mean, and certainly my other presenters are likely talking about this as well. But when we think about these acronyms and this kind of alphabet soup here, these all fit together quite nicely in terms of SASE, SSE, and SD-WAN or WAN edge. Think of SASE as your secure access security edge, which is a amalgamation of the security service edge, SSE, and your WAN edge, okay? SSE in and of itself is comprised of a number of technologies, including things like secure web gateway, zero trust network access, cloud access security brokering, etc., that comprise essentially a cloud-based model to provide these services to wherever the user is or as close to the user as is possible, hence the word edge, and deliver that security service from that point. And then coupled with that, you have the WAN edge or SD-WAN, providing the connectivity from the user, from the branch to that edge. And then put together, you have SASE, or your secure access service edge, all put together in one technological platform. Now, within that, there's also the concept of branch connectivity, workload connectivity, in addition to user connectivity to the services you're trying to get to. So I know there's a mouthful, so let's dive into what exactly does this mean, but more importantly, why are we even talking about these technologies at all? What problem are we really trying to solve? So if we kind of look at major breaches and cybersecurity incidents that frankly are the reason why we'd want to deploy an SSE, SASE type of environment, all of these breaches take a very similar set of steps. And these are the steps that actually these technologies are trying to solve for. So if you think about a traditional architecture where back in the day, all of your applications, all of your resources were hosted in a data center, you had a singular firewall protecting it, and then having to expand that to, let's say, branch offices, factories, and into the cloud, and even expand that to users that were remote using VPNs. What's happened over the many years of these architectures being deployed is the creation of a fairly broad attack surface. Public IPs that are exposed, that allow nefarious actors to find you, to find your organization, to find, let's say, unwitting employees, to find exposed internal applications from which they can compromise. And so any attack surface, be it an externally facing firewall, be it a VPN concentrator, be it an exposed application, runs the risk of a compromise. And what we like to say is if you're reachable, you're breachable. So if there's let's say a 0-day on one of your VPN concentrators, what then happens from this nefarious actor is that they can move laterally. Once they're in the environment, they can start to move from one location to another, looking for sensitive documents, looking for passwords. If you think about all the major breaches that have happened over the last few years, they've all followed this path where they've gotten in and then been able to move on typically a flat type network, looking for things that can be exploited. And then ultimately, once you start moving laterally, the ultimate goal is to steal data or to disrupt operations. And once they find data, the exfiltration can begin. So when thinking about, SSE, SASE, SD-WAN, all these technologies put together, the goal ultimately from an SD-WAN perspective is provide seamless connectivity, but from an SSE perspective is to remove all of these attack points in a cloud-hosted platform type of environment using zero trust architecture. And we're going to talk a little bit about what zero trust means here and how that relates to the concepts of SD-WAN, SASE, and SSE. So if we think about traditional firewall VPN architecture, which is really associated with traditional architecture and some of the issues we just spoke about, a lot of what happens when a user is trying to connect to a resource, let's say something in AWS, is that number one, there's an exposed attack surface because this firewall VPN obviously has to announce itself to provide connectivity. But the architecture itself is what we would call a pass-through architecture. And that gives ultimately access to a network, layer 3 access. And once you have that layer 3 access, you can do that lateral movement that we spoke about earlier, find the sensitive data and do the exfiltration. Now, when we are moving toward a kind of a SASE architecture, think about this service edge hosted in the cloud using the concepts of zero trust. Now, what do we mean by the concept of zero trust? In the concept of zero trust, what happens is there really is no attack surface. In the concept of zero trust, you are basically removing the ability of having any sort of implicit trust in your environment. So the attack surface ultimately goes away. Everything is essentially hidden behind a zero trust architecture. And once you do that, the ability for pass-through and easy lateral network access goes away as well. And all of that capability is hosted as part of a SSE. If you think about SSE or SASE, as part of an SSE SASE service edge, sitting in the cloud, a few milliseconds away from where the users are, providing all of these protections and ultimately making the connection up to the application, the resource that your users are trying to get to. So as part of that, this zero trust type of architecture, what exactly is it doing? So if you think about this service edge, it sits in all of these locations close to where the users are. What exactly, or what steps exactly are they going through in order to connect that user to that particular resource? And when I say user, we're talking about, employees, obviously, but this also applies to things like workloads, external parties, third parties, for example, or even IoT, OT devices. So as part of this zero trust architecture through an SSE type of platform, the first thing that happens is an identity step. And this is what's really different about these architectures versus more traditional architectures. Everything is stopped and queried from an identity perspective. So this uses an identity provider integration, and the user, the workload, whatever you might be, is first identified to understand what their department they might be in, their status as an employee versus a contractor, for example. And then once the identity is established, at that point, it's important to understand what the destination of that request is. And this is where application policy becomes very important as part of this whole service edge. This application policy basically says which users are actually allowed to talk to which resources. And so, in a traditional sense, in a VPN sense or traditional sense, there really is no application policy applied per se. Users can access from a network perspective really any resource. In an SSE type of environment, there's an application policy in line. And then beyond that, there is a concept of continuously understanding the risk of that request. And that risk can come from looking at user behavior, the type of device that user's coming in on, the looking at inspection of the traffic to see if there's anything bad coming in or good coming out, or even integrating with third-party intelligence sources like Okta or CrowdStrike, for example, to understand risk. And then once that happens, and only once that happens, a decision is made to either connect that user to that destination and from a SaaS or internet perspective, or when it comes to private applications, stitch together the multi-tunnel stitching to prevent external access, but provide that user access to that sensitive internal application. So think of this architecture, these steps being embedded as part of this SSE SASE architecture in many locations around the world at these service edges, applying these steps to any request for resources that a user would do to try to get the information that they need. All right. So that being said, how does that actually break into kind of a platform of solution? So when we think about the Zscaler, we call it our Zero Trust Exchange with what we've been talking about. We think of this in the kind of 4 different categories of services that our SASE SSE platform provides. First and foremost, it's about cyber threat protection. Obviously, the ability to prevent malware and botnets, command and control from getting into your environment. Obviously, there's this big ransomware prevention piece of that. So the ability to prevent compromise and prevent the lateral movement of that compromise were it by chance to happen. So that's a big part of it. The second part of it is also around data protection. So not only are we wanting to prevent compromised users getting in and moving laterally, but the prevention of data loss, both data that might be moving, right, from a user's device, let's say up to the cloud, or up to, let's say, a third-party file sharing site that's not sanctioned, but also ensuring that through API, sensitive data is not living in the cloud. And again, this SSE SASE platform provides that level of data protection. Now, underlying all of that is this concept of zero trust networking. And this is where we'll talk about how we apply zero trust to the concept of SD-WAN and access. So this is the concept of connecting users, branches, let's say workloads sitting in data centers, workloads sitting in clouds, to other workloads, to other users, to other locations, using the principles and concepts of zero trust. And through all of this, there's the ability to then provide secure workforce, secure workloads, secure B2B, and secure IoT OT. Now, one of the benefits of having this kind of SSE SASE platform that's collecting essentially trillions and trillions of signals is that you can actually glean a lot of knowledge from those signals. And this is where you'll see the use of AI/ML services on top of this SSE SASE platform in order to derive business insights or risk insights. So as an example, understanding user performance, user experience, right? Using those signals to say, hey, we have users that are having performance problems, then it's because of Wi-Fi. Using that same data to look at understand return to office. How many people are working from home, working from the office, hybrid environments, or using it to calculate, let's say, risk scores. So all of this is built on an underlying architecture that has lots of daily signals that we can use for AI/ML services. Now, how exactly are we, disrupting the 4 elements that I mentioned before? So we talked about they find you, they compromise you, they move laterally, and they steal your data. So what exactly is this SASE SSE platform doing to minimize that? So number one, obviously, you want to minimize the attack surface. So what essentially happens in a SASE SSE environment is that the applications themselves are hidden behind this cloud, this SSE SASE platform. The service edge becomes that protection point. Things beyond it, especially private applications, cannot be seen. The service edge protects that. And ultimately, that attack surface that you might have had with a firewall VPN goes away. Now, second, because of the compromise factor, the SASE SSE platform is also doing deep scanning through SSL TLS inspection of those packets going in and out. And so you're able to, at scale, block anything that looks like a potential compromise. So the ransomware attempts, the botnets, the malware, all of that can be blocked at that SSE SASE service edge, and then thereby protecting those end users. Now, what's interesting when it comes to the lateral movement, how does this platform get rid of the risk of lateral movement? And this is through this concept of segmentation. So ultimately, what we've come to learn over the last several decades is that doing segmentation from a network perspective is actually quite difficult. It's not a particularly easy thing to do. Ultimately, you're using ACLs and firewall rules, and networks don't really make themselves easy to segment. When traffic is going through this service edge, you then can apply, let's say, business type policies to create user to app or app to app segments, What do I mean by that? What I mean is, if you have a user, let's say, that's sitting in a department called finance, and you have applications that only people in finance should see, your segmentation policy becomes a very simple: department finance should have access to application finance. Nobody else should have access to the application. So segmentation is done on a business perspective, segmenting users to specific applications that they're able to access through very specific policies. And when you do that, this concept of being reachable goes away. So a user that's in finance, let's say they're out of finance, let's say they're in sales, they no longer have any reachability to that financial application. They are entirely segmented from it. And so this ability to move laterally essentially goes away. You have a very small blast radius. And all of this is done kind of via overlay. So there's really no network changes required. These are all overlays that are built on top of the existing network. It's quite network agnostic. And then finally, the last step obviously is prevent data loss. And ultimately, if you're doing that level of inspection, making sure nothing bad is coming in, you can do a similar thing for making sure nothing bad is going out or nothing sensitive is going out. And that's where you can secure the data in motion and through API secure data at rest as well. All right, so we've spoken a lot about, this concept of protecting users accessing, specific resources, let's say sitting in the cloud or a data center, for example. But, when we talk about SASE, SSE, what we really want to think about is using or applying SASE principles in a zero trust way. And what that means is not only focusing on users that are connecting through this zero trust exchange to where they need to go, but really anything. So that could be branches, it could be factories, it could be branches connecting to a data center, branches connecting to the cloud. It could be workloads, talking from one cloud to another cloud in a multi-cloud environment, for example. And this is where the concept of zero trust SASE comes in, specifically zero trust SD-WAN. Now, we've spoken about SD-WAN a little bit. We've been focusing a lot on the SSE side of the house. But SD-WAN in and of itself is a technology that provides connectivity, right? It employs technologies like path selection, for example. It simplifies a lot of the operation of maintaining policies at the edge, for example. However, if you think about traditional SD-WAN has many of the problems that we spoke about earlier in terms of access, lateral movement, exposure. So if you think about a traditional kind of mesh type of SD-WAN environment, this is really a mesh of site-to-site VPN. So everything we spoke about user-fronted VPNs, similar things apply to site-to-site VPN. So for example, if you have a compromise at a particular campus or particular factory, in a non-zero trust SD-WAN world, that would be able to move laterally and infect really everything that was connected to. So what are we saying? So we're saying that we should rethink SD-WAN from a zero trust perspective. So what does that mean? That basically means applying the same principle we spoke about earlier, connecting through the zero trust exchange, but applying that to really any sort of location, a campus, a factory, a branch office, a store, for example, a sales office, using a flexible connector, right? And this could be a lightweight agent, could be a physical appliance, it could be a virtual machine, but ultimately using that zero trust exchange in between that office location, connecting out to the resource, but having that zero trust exchange sitting in between. The mesh network goes away, the ability to have lateral propagation goes away, and ultimately you've created a network overlay that still sits on a routable network, but the ability to do routing on that overlay essentially is gone, and so the ability to have that lateral movement is gone as well. So if you think about kind of the migration of having this SSE platform hosted in the Zero Trust Exchange, couple that with this Zero Trust SD-WAN, you have now protected yourself from all of the major elements that attackers will use to get into your environment. Now, how is this actually provided? So Zscaler has what we would call the world's largest inline security cloud, over 150 exchanges or service edges around the world. You see some maps there showing where these exchanges are. Processing over 360 billion transactions a day, which is 20x what Google processes. It's quite a tremendous number of requests, providing over 500 trillion daily signals, which gives us the ability to provide the insights that we can on top of the service cloud that we offer. And ultimately, what is the ultimate goal of this? It's ultimately to secure, right? Reduce the risk business risk, risk reduction obviously is huge. Simplify, right? Through an SSE, SASE type of platform, you're eliminating costs, eliminating complexity. You don't have as many point solutions. You're pointing things to a centralized cloud platform, centralized policy, centralized management, all hosted within this massive cloud network around the world. And ultimately doing this and with the ultimate goal of transforming the business. It's about business agility, about being able to acquire companies in a seamless manner, mergers and acquisitions, introducing new retail locations. All this is about transforming business and increasing agility. And going down this path certainly will do that. And funny, I'll end with a quote. This is from one of our customers who basically said, it's rare that you'll find a solution that provides more security, better user experience, and cheaper all at once. But frankly, this migration to SASE, SSE, SD-WAN really does enable all of those type of benefits. So thank you very much for listening today. And now we're going to go into some Q&A.
Thanks so much, Sanjeet. I've really enjoyed how you laid out that information, and I'm so excited about what Zscaler can do. For everyone out there in the audience, you'll see I've put up yet another poll. I know your fingers are warmed up, so go hit that now. Again, this is your wish list, your easy button. You want good information, so click on your preference, and the team at Zscaler will hand it right to you. Now, it is time for Q&A. We've got about 5 minutes, and I've got a surprise for you all. In addition to Sanjeet, we've got Simon Thompson, Director of Platform Marketing Lead at Zscaler. He'll be joining us live for Q&A. Simon, since we've had a lot of questions come in, I'm going to let you select the questions based on your expertise and pose them to Sanjeet. Maybe have a little banter. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thanks, Mackenzie.
Perfect. So
Banter.
take it away,
awesome.
guys.
Let's have some banter, Simon. What do you say?
We are always able to do that offline, so let's see if we can do it here. Hey, Sanjit, so I think I looked at the questions that came in. There were some really good ones. I want to just call out a couple of specifics so I think we can really add some value for the audience. Mm-hmm. First up, why would you consider SSE when SASE looks like a more comprehensive model?
Yeah, really good question. Whoever asked in the audience, great question. Kind of cuts right to the chase of this session about SD-WAN, SSE, and SASE. Look, the market is certainly evolving quite rapidly. There are vendors like Zscaler that have started in the SSE world and have expanded to SASE. There are vendors that have started in the SD-WAN world and added on SSE, for example. And single vendor SASE is also kind of an evolving space. Our advice would be to really understand, if you look at Gartner, they recommend very similar things, really understand kind of where you are on your progression from a SSE perspective, SD-WAN perspective, to make a decision about whether you want to go for a single vendor SASE solution like a Zscaler or some of the others on this webcast, or if you want to use maybe an SSE solution that is security focused, that like Zscaler is also quite network agnostic. And so what I mean by that is you can use Zscaler's SSE and really integrate it with any underlying SD-WAN platform you might have. In fact, we have integrations with all, or if not all, almost all of the SD-WAN providers, whereby they can seamlessly integrate with the Zscaler cloud. So it really depends on where you are in the journey. Certainly, there's no wrong way to go. Really, what we recommend is to take the steps toward this just from to improve your cyber security posture. But SSE on top of a kind of a network agnostic platform certainly works quite well. Single vendor SASE, especially with our new Zero Trust SD-WAN that we've just announced, is also a very good option.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've actually heard similar things from customers that full SASE, that's quite an ask and sometimes a challenge from an organizational perspective. So SSE obviously is the important part to get right first, security first. So that sounds good. All right, actually you touched on SD-WAN. The next question is related to that. I already have SD-WAN. Am I going to have to rip and replace?
Yeah, great question. And I touched on it briefly just now. The answer is no, right? So in an SSE world and the way that Zscaler has built our architecture, we are network agnostic. So everything I spoke about earlier about, not allowing or not putting people or users on a network, obviously the network's still there, but Zscaler is built to be a network overlay. And the beauty of that is that it can really run on top of or overlay on top of anything you have as your underlay. So by that means, if you have, let's say, an SD-WAN solution already in place, Zscaler would work seamlessly on top of that. So the tunnels that we would create between your users and branches, for example, out to our cloud would just ride on top of your SD-WAN. The SD-WAN would obviously do, your path selection on the underlay, would integrate with routing on the underlay, but then all the security overlay would be handled by us. And like I mentioned earlier, Zscaler does maintain deep integration with most, if not all, SD-WAN providers. Many of them are single-click integrations where Zscaler will automatically create tunnels with the SD-WAN controller out to our cloud. So it's quite a seamless integration. And I've worked with many customers who have done that integration quite easily. Now, if you haven't gone down the SD-WAN path, obviously we now have a zero trust SD-WAN solution as well. But certainly if you already have, no need to rip and replace. Zscaler fits seamlessly on top of that.
Nice. That'll be good news for a lot of people, I'm sure. And actually, it looks like we have got some network-centric folks joining us today, which is great. And I mean, since we're talking about SASE especially. So another question on that. Using network segmentation and policy to control app access, isn't that zero trust?
Yeah, I mean, so look, in zero trust, I'm seeing another question about, is zero trust required? Are there other options to zero trust? So let me kind of explain from a high level and to answer this question and the other one that came in on the chat. So look, zero trust is a framework. It's a journey. It's not really tied. And if you look at the original definitions by John Kindervag and Forrester and Gartner over the years, it's not necessarily tied to any particular technology, although there are technological implementations and moving toward zero trust. Now, when it comes to network-based segmentation and policy there, traditionally, networks have been not very akin to allow for segmentation easily at layer 2, 3. And if you think about network layer controls with VLANs and ACLs, it is not, and customers that I've worked with for years always struggle to do true network-based segmentation, primarily because you are doing it at the kind of the IP port layer. And one of the reasons, and so look, that is certainly a step towards zero trust if you are able to do it at scale and deal with the complexity. So it's not as if it's not in the direction of zero trust. What we believe at Zscaler, however, is that there is an easier way that really network segmentation, is okay, but overly complex. What if you actually did application to user segmentation? And instead of having to deal with IP addresses and port numbers, which frankly aren't particularly good ways to identify who should talk to who, but rather make it based on identity and business application and make policies at a higher layer, basically layer 7 type policies as opposed to layer 2, 3 policies. And so, everything I would say is a step toward a zero trust framework. Obviously, there are easier ways to do it, and Zscaler's implementation of user to app segmentation is one of those. Now, to the question about are there alternate cybersecurity solutions besides using zero trust, I think it's a good question, right? Because ultimately, so many vendors are talking about zero trust as the way forward. I would encourage you to think about really what the problem, without even thinking about zero trust or not, what is the problem statement? And if you kind of remember one of the early slides I showed, the problem statement is fourfold, right? Number 1, there's an attack surface. Number 2, there's a risk of compromise. Number 3, there's a risk of lateral movement. And number 4, there's a risk of data loss. So not even thinking about zero trust, if you are doing things to eliminate those 4 areas, sure, those are, there are potentially ways to do that. Now, are there easy ways to do that without thinking in a zero trust way? I would argue likely not. Right. So, obviously, if you're going to go to a situation where you don't have an exposed attack surface, an exposed attack surface is basically implicit trust. So you want to move away from that. What is the moving away from that? That's the concept of zero trust. So, I would think about it in the problem statement. Yes, there are multiple ways to do things. Zero trust has been proven time and time again is really the best approach to reduce the risks that we talked about earlier in the presentation.
Amazing. Simon, Sanjit, I think that has to be our last question just due to time today, but thank you both for being here. Really great stuff. Really appreciate having you on.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So yeah, if you have been sitting through here, don't forget to check out the handouts tab for a link to Zscaler's SASE Zero Trust Resource Center. A ton of information there for you to dig into. And if you did ask a question, don't worry. I know sometimes we can't reach all of these questions in the time we have on an EcoCast. The team will definitely be reaching out from Zscaler and let you know all the info that you need. So one final thank you to Sanjit and Simon. Great to have you both, and hope to see you again on another EcoCast soon. Okay, right now we have another $300 Amazon gift card, and a quick reminder, you must be present at the webinar to win. So next lucky winner here with us today is Ed Fabian from Missouri. Big congrats, Ed. And again, we'll reach out afterwards to let you know about how to claim that. Alrighty, what a day so far, am I right? We've had a great keynote, 2 fantastic presentations so far. So let's wrap this thing up with aplomb. Today's third and final presenter is Jason Georgi, Global Field CTO, Prisma Access and SASE from Palo Alto Networks. Jason, I'm excited to see what you've got for us. So I'm just going to hand this over to you right away, and then the floor is yours, and I'll meet you on Q&A.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So, hey, let's just go ahead and get right into it. I know we're talking about, what are some of the key differences between evaluating approaches around the cloud delivered security market, including things like Secure Access Service Edge or SASE, Security Service Edge or SSE, and what kind of makes up those components, right? Well, I like to start everything pretty simple, right? And then we can get into some detail from there. But hey, let's look at the acronyms, right? What is in it, right? And so if we want to start with a good foundational aspect of what both SSE and SASE are built upon, it is the concept of zero trust network access, right? And zero trust network access, and the acronyms that follow are really markets that were defined by Gartner, and this was done, starting in, I believe, early summer of 2019, graduating through to a couple of years ago, around what these markets should actually be and why they're important to organizations as they consider what they want to do moving forward. But let's level set everything, right? When we do talk about things like zero trust and zero trust network access, zero trust is a strategy. It is not a product. I don't care how good of technology somebody else has in the market. There's no way a single vendor can get you fully to zero trust. There's just no way. So when they start to claim that, immediately become skeptical because it's just not true. But let's start with the ZTNA Foundation, because that is typically what a lot of organizations do want to migrate to an SSE or a SASE for, is starting with some type of zero trust network access based approach. But that is really just a component. And now if we want to, concentric circle this thing out, right? ZTNA is part of an SSE as defined by Gartner, which also includes things like secure web or internet gateway, firewalls as a service, and CASB. So these 4 components together are your typical SSE. Now, if we want to include SD-WAN, a single vendor or even integrated multi-vendor SASE approach, that is where SD-WAN comes into play with an integrated SSE type architecture. So this is now where we start to actually round out what a SASE should look like and what it should feel like for most organizations. All of this can be part of a zero trust architecture, right? It is actually a great way to enforce what we want to do from a zero trust access perspective across several mediums, right? Whether the user's sitting at home, remote, or in a branch, accessing resources no matter where they happen to reside, your data centers, cloud VPCs, or IaaS environments, your colos, SaaS, or the web. Let's see how consistent we can get, right? And I think that's really, the consistency piece is really what's important when we start talking about this, because at the end of the day, work has become an activity. It is not a place. And if we leverage something like that mindset to set the technology direction we want moving forward, it just makes things clearer, right? It eliminates our biases towards certain guardrails and things that we might have had in place when it comes to security posture, policy, and reach, or users on net accessing certain resources. We know there's security controls, even like physical, right? Badging into an office, authenticating to a network then before even accessing a resource. But when most organizations are hybrid, completely hybrid in one way, shape, or form, it eliminates some of those guardrails. So how do we keep that consistency there? So that's a lot of what we're going to wind up covering today. So here's a lot of what I see every single day. I'm the field CTO for Prisma Access and SASE here at Palo. I talk to customers pretty much all day, every day. And this is what I see. I see a current state of users, just kind of like I described before, working from various areas, accessing both private apps and public apps, regardless of where they sit. And they've got multiple architectures satisfying that requirement, right? Either a VPN or multiple VPNs, especially if we start talking about employees and then third-party access and things like that. We've got to access private applications, then we've got our CASB environment or our SaaS security environment, and then our secure web gateway, getting to the internet itself. With an SD-WAN tied in, hopefully, depending on where we are with our SD-WAN projects, into each of these potential areas for optimal traffic routing and engineering. But either way, what we tend to see is this is a very complicated environment, right? Each with their own policy, logging, and configuration capabilities. And this winds up leading to complexity and fragmentation and lack of security consistency, right? And so now what we have to do, and what a lot of organizations are starting to really get under their feet with, is a SASE type approach or a project, right? How do we go about modernizing what we would want to do from a network security perspective to deliver better outcomes? Now, the reality is, unfortunately, when you start looking across the market, right, and these are, again, markets and industries kind of defined by Gartner, is you will see a lot of capabilities or vendors out there that say, hey, we've got this giant cloud exchange, or we're doing SSE in this type of, unified cloud environment, when we've got this, new SD-WAN type connector that hooks into that and all of this type of stuff. So they really want you to think this is a very unified approach. The reality is, when you start to peel back what's underneath that exchange, we still have multiple architectures, right? Each with their own configuration, policy, and logging, right? Which, okay, maybe we're better off in some respects because we've consolidated things under a single vendor to access both private and public applications, regardless of where the user's working from. However, we still have that fragmentation, right? Because it's different policies. We still have inconsistency because we don't have rationalization of access and security controls across all of these things. So we're still somewhat complicated, right? And so we do need to rethink how we want to do things, not just from our current state, but what is actually out there and what's going to achieve the outcomes we want to achieve. And before I get into where I'm going with this next, the outcomes we really need to achieve are going to be bucketized, which I'll show you here momentarily. But it's about how we look at this is what's going to make the difference and deliver better outcomes for us. So let's look at them now. We need to address risk in two ways. Going back to that original statement I made, around work being an activity, not a place. It's got to start with, obviously, posture, policy, and reach, right? Making sure that we can consistently protect users' apps and data. We're a security company. Most everybody that's part of this discussion is a security company. That's paramount. However, equally as important, we need to be thinking about operational availability, operational risk, right? Making sure that the service is available when we need it at all times, especially when sending critical private application traffic through this particular service. So let's take a look at the security risk first. Most organizations that are looking at zero trust network access or zero trust access across their security cloud are asking a couple of questions. So let's boil this down into ZTNA. Who and what? Pretty simple. I want to understand who is the requester of a particular resource or data set, and then what is that data set, and is it entitled by policy? The reality is, we need to ask a third question that just not many in the industry are doing, which is asking what's inside. And I'll walk through why this is incredibly important. Let's go ahead and do that now. So let's just use Prisma Access as the example for this. We have a user that's wanting to request a resource, doesn't matter what it is. You've got a security cloud that sits in the middle of this session, intercepts the request and says, okay, stop. Everything stops. We're going to implicitly deny this request. We'll explicitly allow it if allowed by policy. Now let's understand what that policy actually looks like. Let's understand the user and the device context. Good or bad, right or wrong, I just want to understand authentication status, group membership, conditional access, device posture, location variables, things like that, just so I understand what I need to know before even making a decision as to whether or not something's allowed. So, okay, we've established the who. Like I said, good or bad, right or wrong, we know the context. Now what? Based on that, what level of entitlements do you actually get? Right? So if you're working from a known location with a managed device, full access to all of your entitlements. However, you take your managed device and yourself to the Bahamas on vacation and your organization says, hey, this is kind of a high risk area. Maybe you don't get all of your entitlements, or your entitlements have degraded levels of access, attribute level access. So instead of full access like uploading and download to that application, maybe you only have read-only access, or upload only, or download only. Again, depending on the condition, to provide truly least privileged access given the context of the requesting user and device. So this is asking now the who and the what, right? And this is pretty much what everybody's trying to accomplish with the ZTNA space, zero trust access type space. However, like I said before, when it comes to where we need to be asking a third question, that gets into what's inside. Because if we're an implicit deny architecture, explicitly allowing traffic, that means that only bad things can happen over allowed traffic, right? I mean, it makes sense. Implicit deny, explicit allow, bad things happen over that allowed traffic. Extending zero trust, the principles of zero trust into the session itself, is how we continue to mitigate risk as it appears, right? And some of these risks include things like ensuring that if a user's credentials are abused, so the insider threat, right? So making sure somebody can't do more than they need to do given their entitlements. However, once those entitlements are granted, if that user is rogue, making sure malicious behavior can't occur on that traffic or on that application or data store, right? Just looking at the session itself for anything bad that could be happening. So this is making sure that we take this approach very consistently across any destination. So a lot of organizations will say, yeah, we're doing a lot of the security inspection on internet bound traffic because they're looking at this in a A-B relationship. Let's look at it that way for a second, right? To say if the relationship between a user and B, the internet is I'm accessing the internet, I'm trying to block bad things from coming down back to A, right? So protecting the user and the endpoint. Then the assumption is if I have extending this relationship now from AB to an ABC relationship, where C is a private application sitting in the data center cloud VPC, if my device is uninfected, that connection and session should be secure, right? It should be clean of threats. Well, sure, perhaps if you blocked certain web threats and that's what's trying to crawl across, but that does not account for credential theft or abuse. And the reality is, brute force into a data store that's protected by firewalls and IDS and IPS and things like that, is it still a mechanism and a vector? Sure. What's a more common vector picking up more and more? LinkedIn, right? Just going out there, finding the CEOs, the legal team, the M&A team, the developers of a company, socially engineering a spear phishing campaign, getting a handful of that larger group to click a link, and then MFA bomb them, right? Hoping somebody succumbs to something like that. To now we have credentials, right? But then there's also the insider threat, like I talked about before. Either way, we have to be able to mitigate once that session is established between now A and C, bad things from happening. If we're only looking at protecting A, the user and the endpoint, from B, the internet, we're leaving C, which is private applications, completely vulnerable. So we have to be able to tie that off. So that's really what we want to make sure we're doing by securing all apps, all data in a consistent way, regardless of where that user is coming from, whether it's at home, traveling, or in a remote branch location. Quickly, I want to take a quick look at SD-WAN, right? Because now there's increased focus on SD-WAN in the what was just formerly an SSE space, where a lot of vendors competed, right? They were primarily concerned with what I just covered in terms of the network security-based architectures and things like that. But now, how do we transition into a more SASE type play, where SASE, like I showed before, includes things like SD-WAN capabilities? Well, I put this slide up here on purpose. SD-WAN versus SD-WAN. What we want to make sure we're talking about in terms of SD-WAN is not just a branch connector, right, that has some type of connectivity, zero touch, just get traffic flowing to that security cloud, the SSE cloud, if you will. Because what has to be accounted for are several elements when it comes to true branch modernization and security, secure SD-WAN, which includes things like how are we actually going to improve day two operations, right? How are we going to apply zero trust at the branch level if we need to, right? And including inspection types, application-based access and allowances, the application-defined fabric, so that we say we're not just shoehorning traffic into the cloud and saying, hey, have at it. It's what do we actually want to do with that application traffic given the criticality of it and the destination, and making sure all this is elastic, right? So it's making sure that we can look at this through a different lens, right? It's not just about, like I said, having a branch connector that just tunnels traffic up to this cloud. It is, what if we need to worry about link diversity? Meaning we've got still some legacy MPLS, some ISP, introducing some LTE or 5G into the same location. And we want to be able to split traffic across those types of links. A branch connector can't do that. When we want to make sure quality of the path is there, right? And link quality is actually there. Branch connectors can't do that. Their sole job is just, hey, I'm going to just throw this traffic at you. Let's see what happens next. That's not what SD-WAN is about. SD-WAN is truly taking an application-centric view of what is originating from that branch and making sure there's an optimal and secure path to wherever it's going. And that is looking at application heuristics. It's looking at the codec. It's looking at certain scoring, right? Those are not part of these new connector SD-WAN type architectures. They just don't exist. They want it to be simple, and that's fine. But simple rarely breeds good results when it comes to things like this. Well, overly simple, I should say. So just wanted to hit on SD-WAN for a moment there, because I think it's important when we talk about what is the difference between SSE and SD-WAN, especially now that so many SSE vendors have included an SD-WAN capability that's not really SD-WAN. It's just branch connectivity. So now let's look at the operational risk, because this is, like I said, just as important as the security risk in most, if not all, organizations I talk to, which is saying, hey, how do we make sure that the service is always available? Let's take this step back real quick to look at how we did design networks at one point in time. So anybody that has a networking background or even just cares about resiliency, right? When we built tier one sites, what did we care about? We had things like multi-vendor, dual path, dual diverse vendor capabilities around our wide area networks, whether that's MPLS, ISP, a combination of all of them, doesn't matter. We wanted to make sure we had resiliency and diversity, right, on purpose, because if one vendor failed or had an issue throughout their service, we had a whole other vendor we could fail over to. That is the foundation of how we built our cloud architecture. It is a multi-cloud environment, making sure that if one hyperscaler has issues at all from a foundational perspective, there's a whole other hyperscaler there to carry the load, all leveraging dynamic cloud scale and things like that. This is going to make sure that we can provide the highest possible uptime. We don't want this to fail. You don't want it to fail when you're sending this critical traffic through it. And when we start talking about turning on these security services and doing all that inspection that I covered earlier around the policy-based access and security inspection of all traffic, being able to turn all of that on without impacting user experience by having a super low SLA on security processing, including SSL decrypt to private applications as well, incredibly important. Then SaaS performance, right? The number of SaaS applications in our environment, how much of our work is actually being done in SaaS. It's super critical that we have good performance to these repositories and applications. So making sure that we can leverage what we want to deliver a high quality service, multiple availability zones across the hyperscalers, ensuring we have cloud native scale, the capacity is there on demand when you need it, making sure we can isolate customers, their data plane is isolated so there's no noisy neighbor condition. One customer is having a super high bandwidth day, sending tons of traffic through the service. You don't want to be impacted by that, right? That's not your fault. It's not anything you can control. Why would you want somebody else impacting what you can do on that service? We agree. So let's make sure that we don't have that problem by isolating data planes per customer dynamic scaling and things of that nature. This also gives us the ability to take a look at how a cloud network should run, making sure that we're separating edge from compute. So when congestion happens in either one of those things, we're not taking down the entire POP or the entire region, right? By that type of diversity, we can mix things up and ensure that availability is always there. Also, while being able to use a cloud network for transit itself. So this is what we want to do. We want to take a look at this from a more holistic perspective, a more unified perspective around policy, management, and control from users no matter where they work to whatever they need to access. And that includes all components of SASE and SSE, right? So your Zero Trust Network Access, SWIG or SIG, CASB, firewalls as service that are part of your SSE, and then fully integrated SD-WAN, true SD-WAN that is able to serve the function of the modern branch. A couple more things to just round this out due to the, conversation around AI. SASE is the perfect place for AI to explode and deliver better outcomes. Why? Because it's sitting in line, but it just sees so much traffic. What to do with that traffic is what becomes important, right? And this is where we start to talk about the 3 C's of data. Because when it comes to what we want to do and how we want to do it, it's about making sure we're complete. We've got all the data we can from a single source, if possible. It's consistent. Things are speaking the same language. The formatting and structure is similar, so that then we have a correct view of what we're actually collecting all of this data and producing an output with. So making sure that great AI is only delivered possibly with good data, right? So keeping that going. And then it can look really, really strong when it comes to managing our environment, right? What are we actually able to see from that source traffic origination perspective to where it's going and everything in between? Sitting in line, what does the traffic look like? What does the threatscape look like? Let's summarize this and understand our environment all the better, right? And ensuring we've got operational health, day 2 operations are strong, and we can actually leverage AI to deliver better outcomes across the spectrum of what SASE is meant to deliver. So this is it, rounding this out. It's a unique approach on purpose to deliver better outcomes. It is not a feature, capability matrix type product, if you will. It is a platform that is meant to deliver better outcomes around having a robust cloud architecture that is going to make sure it doesn't fail when you need it most. It's going to have a unique approach to security, making sure all traffic is scanned for threats, whether that's private or public application traffic, and leveraging AI intelligently and securely to improve day 2 operations. We've proven it, right? So as I open this up, Gartner kind of created these markets. We lead in them all, and I think we're well positioned to do so in the future as well, given, the investments we're making and what we're doing in this space. So that's the presentation.
Jason, that was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I mean, you did all the hard work, but happy to have you here today.
I love talking about it. It's easy.
That's beautiful. We did have quite a number of questions come in while you were presenting, so I know we've got a little bit of time for Q&A here. Are you ready to field a couple of questions?
Fire away.
Okay. First one here I've got, it says, AI is getting a lot of attention, but it's also something that causes a lot of concern. What's the right way I should be thinking about it?
Great question. And that's why I did want to make sure I included a little bit of it at the end, because AI is an incredibly powerful tool. When we're talking about data, it's what do you actually do with this data, and you're collecting all of it. It's no different than the BI teams and things like that we're starting to do with customer data for our own customer organization support, right? How can we make the experience better? It's by collecting all this data and doing something with it. So AI has been a powerful tool for a long time in real-time or faster analysis of this data using machine learning and things like that. Now, chat, natural language processing, generative AI, and things like that have really amplified the view of what AI is in the environment. And that is just as powerful at times. When so a couple slides ago, I showed a dashboard of what your world could look like. Imagine just asking that dashboard a question, it giving you an answer, and then based on that answer, you tell it to go do something. That's incredibly powerful usage of a tool to where now you don't need certain skill sets to be able to be an administrator, right? Can you talk? great, then you can manage this environment, and it makes it that easy. On the allowing intelligent and secure use of chat type services and things like that, they're out there. They're not going to go away. It's a matter now of, how do we apply the right security controls to make sure what's being accessed is safe? We're not allowing intellectual property or sensitive data to leave our environment through those channels. So it's just then having a better data security strategy on the use of those tools. So answering it all, internally, incredibly powerful, using machine learning and AI to get real use out of the data that we're collecting. Otherwise, what are we even collecting it for? And then it's using generative AI for both internal use to be able to talk to our systems and use them more intelligently internally, while allowing employees to use external generative AI in a way that allows them to do their job better, securely.
Very nice. No, it's really neat to see like how developed the AI what's the word? The AI suite of kind of abilities at Palo Alto Networks is there already. So
yeah, for sure.
Okay, I think we have time for just one more question, because I know we ended up chatting quite a bit here. So question, what are the top problems you hear about securing hybrid work? I know you kind of touched on that, but are there any like really pertinent, pressing ones that you'd want to talk about?
Biggest one, and it doesn't matter if a customer's already started down their SASE journey really, but it's the consistency and visibility. You can't have security without visibility, right? And so something like a SASE is able to get that, or be an aggregator, get all that traffic in there to at least start seeing where it's coming from and where it's going. So that's when we can start to get consistent, right? We can start getting consistent around how we control access and how we apply security inspection on certain traffic types, so that we keep, so we're protecting all three, those dimensions, that ABC relationship. Protect A, the user, from B, the internet, but then also protect C, which is an application or sensitive data, from an potentially compromised A, right? So just getting all that information, seeing it, and applying it well, because that's where I see it still a lot of audit teams and things like, hey, how are we sure we've got a consistent security policy, even when that user's working at home or on a plane or in a hotel versus a branch. And that's the power that SASE can actually bring by, giving that aggregated view of things and getting that visibility to start somewhere at least.
Very nice. Amazing. Thank you. Okay, one final question. If someone saw your presentation today and they're like, we got to get more involved or learn more about Palo Alto Networks, where should they go? What's the first step? What's the action they can take?
Real easy thing, paloaltonetworks.com/SASE is probably the easiest way to start. But there's a pretty good chance that we've got some, contact us information out there as well that will link you right to somebody that, that can help out with some quick, easy answers right away. Somebody from our, business development team or something like that.
Yeah, we've got some on live chat, and we've got a handout from you as well. So if you're here today, definitely go into the handouts tab and grab that. And with that, I'm going to let you go, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Alrighty, so final presenter of the day. Hopefully you enjoyed yourselves. Just to reiterate, in the handouts tab there, you can check out a one-pager from Palo Alto Networks. There's a QR on there, and you can actually get the Gartner report about the 4 quadrants, and definitely worth checking out. And another way on there, it does prompt you an opt-in if you want to have someone reach out. But if your questions were not answered today due to time, don't you worry. We have got the teams from all of our sponsors who will be reaching out with the requested data from the polls and following up with any of your questions from the live chat as well. So that said, you see a poll is up. This is the final poll of the day. Please just poke your finger there, get an answer in. This is truly the best way to get the info and resources that you're looking for. So make sure you get your answers in now. And with that, I'm going to close up the poll, and we are going to give away our third and final Amazon gift card. So you do have to be present to win. Just a reminder, let's hope our final winner is indeed still here. Giving a little drum roll on the desk. We have Samuel. Why can't I say that name? Samuel Silva Molina from South Carolina. You're the final winner of today. Congratulations. And a huge congratulations again to all three of our winners. So just to recap, we have Brian Sutz from California, Ed Fabian from Missouri, and Samuel Silva Molina from South Carolina. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after the webinar, and there is a best question gift card that's going to be given away from each of the 3 sessions. That said, if you are on today's webinar and you would like to chat with us about presenting on a future summit, EcoCast, or MegaCast webinar, we would love to hear from you. Please reach out via email at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank all of our speakers from HPE Aruba Networking, Zscaler, and Palo Alto Networks for making this EcoCast possible. Special thank you to everyone in the audience for attending, asking great questions, answering the polls. And it's February 29th. It's Leap Day. This only happens once in every 4 years. So thanks for spending a little portion of your Leap Day with us here on the EcoCast. Now, if you did love what you saw today and you want to learn more, we are doing this all the time. Great information. So we've got something upcoming on March 5th. We've got threat intelligence and dark web monitoring, uncovering secrets to better security. Again, Tuesday, March 5th, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I hope to see you all again soon. And until then, have a magical day, a magical leap day, and take good care.